So today I'm going to talk on using of diagrams in the product documentations. And specifically, I'm going to talk on Mermaid, how we can use Mermaid in our documenting, uh, specifically the diagrams. So yeah. Uh, so I'm Kalpesh Mahida. I'm a founder and CEO at Engineers. So I have mm, uh, I have done good amount of works on documenting the software products, and yeah, worked as a at a level of software architecture architect. You can connect me on LinkedIn. Yeah. So engineers, yeah, it's an interesting name. So it's yeah, I'm from maths background, so I just did some math, uh, adding two words and making one out of this two, engineer and engineers. So as Neeraj said, we are also having a local community here in India. The community name is the Weaverbird, and through the viewer birds and by attending these webinars, we are trying to give back to the community. So that's our prime motto. The viewer bird name is chosen for that purpose only. So these are the kind of birds who gives or keep the traditions by upskillings or teaching the skills of weavings to the next generation. Yeah. So when we talked about the product documentation, so mostly it's being considered like boring or a time consuming or a difficult task. So even if it is a product owner or a developers, or you can talk to anybody. So mostly this is the perceptions about the product documentation. So why it is so? Um, Documentation requires continuous updates. So yes, uh, if we write something, it becomes obsolete in some days, and we need to keep uh, updating the documentation. So and because of that, it becomes less interested. Uh, to the people who are involved in the product development or a software development. So uh, as a result of this, we have our documentations are not updated anymore, and it has wrong information. So when we wrote some documentation on a day one, becomes the information becomes wrong or absolute in 6 months or so. uh, the requirements might have changed, or some processes on the softwares might have changed. So we can imagine all such things. So that's a problem. It also takes time, yeah, and we always have the time constraints because of the deliveries or meetings the goals and other stuffs. Yeah. So what happened, uh, so we only write few steps or some sections just for sake of doing it. So uh, uh, or some companies might end up hiring external peoples to keep the documentations live. Yeah, but sometimes all the teams are not considering the documentations as a value addition to their software products, yeah. But it has it's important. So if we have the documentation, so the documentation makes it easier for any newcomers or a new teammate. He can go through the documentation, and he can quickly grasp the things. If it is contextual information, if it is about the processes, if it is about the architecture of the products. So these things can be quickly learned if we have some documentation. Okay. And there are few things like the domain level knowledge or the contextual informations about the products, and and uh, and the area on which we are developing our products cannot be grasped just by reading the code base. As a developer, we know that we can read the code, and we come to know what's the product about, and we can certainly get what are the processes involved in what software does basically. But there are few things which we cannot grasp fully, or that could take some times. If we have the documentation, that can be speed up. So sometimes, so the documentation is not only about what and how. So what are the processes or how the software works. It's not only about these two, but it's also about the why. So we all know this golden circle, or knowing your why. So yeah, if the software team knows their why, they are more enthusiastic. They have more fire while they are working on that software development or the product development, because they know why they are building such feature, or why they have certain things or process, whatever about the product. Yeah. So few companies are now adopting documentation first culture. So we have heard about test first approach and mobile first. The same way, there is a culture which advocates documentation first culture. So yeah, you can imagine a situation if there is no documentation about the products, and only few persons know the knowledge, or have the domain knowledge, or the contextual information. And imagine if this one or two people leaves the company, um, the situation of company we can imagine, the situation of the new team who will pick up the product from there, we can imagine. And it's a loss, a huge loss to the company. Yeah. So it's always good to have the knowledge in form of documentation, rather than in the mind of few individual. So um, we see the documentation is important, but as a developer, or 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 the software engineer, when we are working with the code, we see the documentation is far from us. So maybe the documentations are on the wiki pages, or somewhere on a blog, or maybe in a word files or somewhere else. So yeah, so if we bring the documentation close to the code, uh, the software developer can uh, can find time to actually update the document and create new documentation as well. So the idea is to bring the documentation to the code repository. So if we do that, we can also track the changes in the documentation under the version control. The developers are also familiar with the Markdown language and Markdown syntax. So, and nowadays Markdown is a de facto tools for the developers. So, if we bring the documentation close to the code, it would be a practical and the maintainable solution. Uh, Practical because uh, developers can easily write down something into the Markdown syntax, because it doesn't require a lengthy or the poetic skills to write something in the language which is not necessarily their native speaker of. And it's maintainable because developers deals with the code repository on a day-to-day basis, so they will tend to uh, uh, pay attention to the documentation as their daily routine. Okay, so we'll not go through all kind of documentations, but for this talk, we'll focus on adding the diagrams to the documentations. So we know that if we talk about system designs or the software architecture documentation, it has a lot of diagrams, and it's good because if we have a diagram, we can convey the message easily. The developers can talk to each other if they have the diagrams, or any stakeholder of the products can communicate their ideas with the team, or even outside the team, maybe to the other stakeholders or the customers. Yeah. So we are going to take a look at Mermaid and see how it can help us in documenting the diagrams for our products. So yeah. So the Mermaid is created by Knut. Uh, I'm not good at pronouncing a Norwegian name. So yeah, you can read the name of that good gentleman. So yeah, it's written in JavaScript, and so basically it got inspired from Markdown language, so that we can use some definitions to prepare our diagram. So, and at the end we have the visualization, the diagrams gets created by this library. If we just know if we know some syntax, and that syntax is not that hard to write, I would say. So yes, we know that the Markdown syntax. If you would like to add something, or if you would like to use some plugins in Markdown, we have that escape sequence, and we can write Mermaid, and so you can see in the current slide, it talks about rendering a graph and some lines between the nodes. So it's this much easy to to generate a graph using Mermaid. Yeah, so there are a few details in the slides. I will share if you want the slides at the end of talk or maybe tomorrow. So you can go through the project page. Mermaid also have a live editor, so it's like CodePen where you can type the syntax, and you can see live the generation of the diagrams. Yeah, so Mermaid also have uh, a great list of integrations. So I'm not going to talk about all the integrations available. So, but yes, it has the native supports to the version control systems like on GitHub and GitLab. So if we have the Mermaid syntax in our Markdown files documentation, the diagrams are going to be rendered on GitHub and GitLab without doing anything from our side. It also has the integrations on the well-known code editor. So, if you are a PHP developer, yes, PHP Storm, and if you are using PHP Storm, it has a plugin which you can enable, and if you have the Mermaid syntax in your Markdown, you can see the diagrams in the preview pane. Yeah, VS Code and Atom also has the plugin. Apart from this, the other tools like CMS and the project management tools are supporting have the integrations and supports the diagrams which are generated by moments. Yeah. So if you are using PHP Storm, you can go to settings, and in the language and frameworks, under the Markdown, you can find this plugin called Mermaid. So you can enable it for your ID. Uh, we will now look at some diagrams, uh, which can be useful to communicate the things about our product, which we are I mean developing for, yeah, as our day-to-day job. So uh, when we talk about the product development, we definitely need schedule. So we definitely need schedules for our product development tasks. So for that we can use Gantt chart. Yeah, and if you see the syntax, uh, it's pretty much simple. So we can declare the chart by the keyword Gantt, and we could have this top level properties like title, date format, excludes. I mean, yeah. So the title defines. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. The title of our diagrams. We can specify the time formats we want. If we would like to exclude some days, we can define like weekdays, or even we can have comma separated values here if we would like to specifically exclude, let's say, Sunday. If we are working on Saturday, but yeah, if we are not working on Saturday, weekdays, weekends are good settings for us. So uh, the schedulers can be further divided into some sections. So for example, so this is an hypothetical example of product product schedulers or a product timelines. So we could have a phase like planning when we are building POCs, and then we are going further to have some cool features to add some to have some value addition to the product. So we can imagine these phases, and yeah, those would be the sections. Uh, so we could have the name of the task. Okay, so that describes what we are going to do. Um, then we can define few things. So the task status, the task identifier, the dates on which the task is going to be start, and for how much time or how much time it would take. Everything about the task. Okay, so for the status we could have done or active. If some activities are critical, we can mark them as critical. We can also say mark the active task uh, by this keyword active. And even if we have some milestone in between, so if we thinks so our product could have some milestone, and we can define that as well with this diagram. So if we have these kind of diagrams, it would be easier to communicate the timelines, and do some adjustment in the timeline as well. If we need to do some course corrections uh, uh, to our timeline, for the reason could be anything. So yeah, and if it is on our code, we the stakeholders can do it easily. A product owner, even a product owner, can write this kind of documentation. So he need not to learn programming for that. So this piece of code generates this kind of a diagram at the end. Yeah. Um, so we also need entity diagram, entity relationships diagram, to discuss the database designs with the developers. So yeah, we of course we can communicate with the developers if we have the entity classes maybe written in Doctrine, uh, but it's always good to have an diagrams um, like this, so that a person who is not knowing the code can can check, and he can understand, and he can also collaborate with the developers as well. And uh, if we have an diagram like this, it does not have the other extra codes or extra information which we could have in our entity class. So here it is cleaned. So yeah, so if we want to create an diagram, so as we seen for the previous diagrams, we need to declare the diagram with its name. uh, we can declare the entities and the relationship with the other entities. For example, customer could have one delivery address, which also means a delivery address has one customer can place 0 or more orders, and like that. So we can define the relationship between the entities, between the tables. We can also to be minimal for this talk. I have just I have the fields for two entities only to showcase. We can define the fields. Even we can specify if particular fields is a primary key or a foreign key. I mean the key constraints and the detailed descriptions or small descriptions about that field. So you can find more information on what we can do further with this ER diagrams on Mermaid documentations. But if we write something simple like this, it would generate a pretty diagram like this for us. And yeah, it would be pretty helpful in communicating about the entities with the teammates. Class diagrams. So these are also the very important diagrams. So I'm not saying we should write the class diagrams for each and every class, but best if we can have the diagrams for the key classes involved in the architect. So for example, if we are having a strategy, if we are using a strategy pattern, it would be best if we have a diagram for that, so that a new person joining the team can know what we have for the deciding of the route strategy. So assume that if he needs to introduce a new strategy for the navigation purpose, he can easily grasp the things if he checks these diagrams, and he can introduce a new strategy easily. If we have this kind of diagrams for the key or the important mm, designs we have for the class and their relations. Yeah. So for the class diagrams also, we could have lot many possibilities. We can define classes, relations between the classes. We can define the properties, methods, even the type of properties, methods, and the return types, and yeah. So all that we can do uh, with this class diagram syntaxes. You can find more on what are the possibilities on Mermaid documentations. Flow diagrams are also, I have seen, like I think it's the most used diagram to discuss the flow, how one object or a node interacts with the others, and the decisions we need to make during the course. So yeah, it's the most used diagram, I think. Yeah, so it's a so here I do not have a real life example, but it's a funny diagram. So we might have seen this sarcastics or say funny conversations going on social media, like what what we are doing with the software developments. So it's a it's kind of continuous loop. So we are not going out of like developing or writing the code, no matter if we do it fast or well. Yeah, but the jokes apart, uh, uh, coding well is a good options to when we are when we want to develop a clean product. I mean the product with the clean code. Um, yeah. So we can also document the sequence diagrams. So yeah, so these are the diagrams which would be helpful uh, uh, to document what an external actors can do with the system objects. So yeah. So, for example, we could have objects or the participants of that of this of the sequences we are talking about. So here also we can do we can define everything what we can draw manually. So we can define objects, we can define the timelines, we can define the message communications, we can also define the alternate frames, or the parallel actions, the times when a particular object is active or not, even the response from system to actor or from actor to system, or like or from object to object. So we can do pretty much all uh, which we can manually draw or using some tools. So all these things we can do with Mermaid as well. Yeah, so user journey diagram. So this could be the diagrams uh, for the teams to uh, acquainted the teams with the whys and like where we are standing as a product in the markets, or or we can demonstrate like what are the customers expectations, if we are losing the customers, where we are losing the customers, and how we can have the good customer onboardings, and at the end, maybe I mean what could be the strategy by which customer can pay for the products. So there could be many other use cases as well, but here I'm presenting a customer journey for a product. So at the end, we can segmentize, or we could have different types of customers uh, who are using our product. So uh, so we can communicate this kind of things. So for example, the levers are the users or the customers who sign ups, who gone through the onboarding process, and they abandoned our product after that. So they are no more using it. We could have a user who are more interested in freebies. So if we have freebie plans. We could have some users who are using our products up to the points where they see a freebie or free features are good enough for them. So we can imagine the kind of use cases, and we can create kind of diagrams that could be helpful, communicating the customer journey with our, I mean, in general, user journey with our products. um, we can also define the, if I mean, we can add the weightage or the feelings, so that it clearly communicates if we are happy about a particular uh, timeline in the journey map or not. Yeah, so that was it for the Mermaid. So it's also, so you might be wonder why it doesn't have anything related to JavaScript. So it's actually the same syntax which we can use, let's say, inside a div, in an HTML, and we just need to give a class name to a div, and we just need to include some JavaScript libraries in our HTML page, and Mermaid will take care of everything to design a nice diagram for us on HTML page.